Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about using vinyl fabrics on your different doll shoe projects. So you can see in front of us right here, we have several types of vinyl fabric over here on the left, and then we have some other supplies that are a little bit different than if you were going to sew shoes out of regular fabric. Now this needle right here is a leather needle. It's a little bit larger, so this works better on the vinyl fabric. And then we have two alternate style sewing machine feet. One is a walking foot and the other is a non-stick foot that you can use on your machine. It's coated almost with like a Teflon product, so it slides a lot easier along that edge of the vinyl, which usually will cause some resistance on your standard sewing machine foot. There are also other types of sewing machine feet that might work better on vinyl, and you can research those for your type of sewing machine. Now, as it relates to glue, I have a hot glue gun, which I prefer to use for pretty much everything. You can use other glues like tacky glue, but again, those types of glue take longer to dry. You have to either clamp or pin your shoe and let it dry overnight. And with the vinyl, because it has some resistance, that actually might be a little bit more challenging. Another thing that works great with the vinyl shoe is a double stick adhesive, which is what these little sheets right here are. And they have a paper backing on both sides, and you can cut that out. We'll trace the shape of the shoe and then apply that to the chipboard, and that gives us a good starting point to assemble the shoe base to the shoe body. And then I would still go ahead and use glue with that product, but it at least is a helpful assistance. It's almost like a second set of hands. For this illustration, I'm going to make a pair of open-toe Jane's shoes using the vinyl fabric. So the first thing that I'm going to do, because the vinyl fabric does not need to be hemmed, and this particular fabric does not need to be lined because it is fabric backed with a white backing. So I'm going to take my pieces, and I've highlighted and marked on here a 1/4 inch seam allowance down from the top edge of the pattern. And then I'm also going to trim off this fold line all the way across the bottom as well, and that is going to be my cut pattern piece for the vinyl fabric. So I'm removing the top and bottom folded under edges. Also for this shoe, I'm not going to cut the triangle. This is going to be a dressier shoe because of the vinyl, so it doesn't need that elastic cut out. Now the same thing is going to occur for the side piece. We'll go ahead, and I've highlighted here, we're going to trim along this seam allowance line and cut only that side piece minus the part that would have been folded down. Then I'll go ahead and place the pattern pieces on the vinyl, and I'll cut them out one at a time. And I just want to make sure that if any mirroring needs to happen, that I would flip the pattern piece upside down to do my right and my left shoe. For this shoe pattern, it is going in the same direction. It's equal on both sides. So I can just place this and cut it out, and then place it and cut out my second one. And then same for the side, I'm just going to cut out 2 side pieces. So here you can see I have in the red glitter vinyl, I have those pieces cut out. This is the toe piece, and this is that side piece. And this is also backed with the white fabric backing, so I don't think there will be any issue with staining leaking through onto the vinyl foot of the doll. If you're concerned, you can always back this with some Heat and Bond and a white piece of a very lightweight muslin type fabric. Now I'm going to go forward with 2 pairs of shoes. I have the red sparkly vinyl, they'll be open toe, and we have the black vinyl, which will also be open toe. So I'm going to show you a few different things about sewing on them, top stitching on both types. We'll do a little bit more top stitching on the black than the red. The red will just top stitch along this side seam. Now for the red one, I'm going to do the same method of the 2 pieces of chipboard that we use on each shoe, and then black foam that's 2 mm on the bottom. But then as an added embellishment, I'm going to take the 6 mm foam and just cut straight across this back portion in a straight line to create a small heel that will come and sit right underneath the finished sole. So we'll have the black foam and then we'll have a little tiny foam heel. Now to begin, I'm going to show you a few examples of sewing on the vinyl fabric. And a lot of this is the same type of information you're going to use if you're sewing a jacket, like the motorcycle jacket, which sometimes uses, it's a lighter weight vinyl, but it still has this little bit of grip on the outside. This one's really smooth and firm. This one's a little bit softer and textured, which is the same as the black that we have cut out. But both are fabric backed, so you can see that they're both fabric backed. So on the back side, it will go through the machine fine. It's on the front side where it might stick to the back side of your sewing machine foot. So especially when you're sewing real close to the edge, and that's when there's a lot of challenges because it's hard for the feed dogs under the bottom to actually grab the vinyl and pull it through. So let's just take a look. This is standard sewing machine foot, standard straight stitch, and regular just universal needle. So you can see right here, as I'm even trying without my hands at all, it's going nowhere. It is actually stuck to my sewing machine foot. So that is version 1, which obviously does not work. Now I'm just going to illustrate that same foot and needle and stitch length all on this other vinyl as well. So this one might go through a little bit better. It does. So it grabs it a little better, and this one is going okay because I think of the texture that's actually on this fabric. So on this regular marine vinyl, which is what we have, and you can get this one's pretty easy to find at places like Joann or fabric.com. This one will go through fine. The stitches are pretty even. You can see on here, they look pretty good. It's not skipping stitches and it's not pulling, and I didn't have to pull on this fabric at all. But now let's take a look at using the non-stick foot on the machine. So on this machine, my whole foot comes off to replace that. On your machine, you might be able to just remove the actual foot, and that is the part you're replacing. You'll have to look at your manual and your type of machine for those instructions. Now I have not changed anything at all. I'm putting the fabric exactly in the same position as I did on the other one. It's set on both feed dogs. This foot is a little bit smaller, so it might look like the fabric's over farther, but it's not. So let's just see how this one goes through with the non-stick foot. And I'm not going to push or pull on this fabric at all. So you can see already both hands here are free. I am not guiding this fabric at all, except that it's starting to go crooked. But you can see that that actually made a huge difference. So this is a great investment. It works better on this vinyl, which means it will work even better on the other type of vinyl. And then you can see here too, as we look at these stitches, these look pretty good too. They all look equal, so it's not having a hard time moving that fabric as it sews. So this one here works really well. And then we'll just slide this through on the other vinyl as well. And again, I'm not pulling this fabric at all. I'm just simply guiding it a little bit so that it goes straight. So you can see on this one, we have a nice even row of stitching. This one goes through perfectly fine with this non-stick foot. And here's one final example. I'm just going to show using a walking foot. So the walking foot has added feed dogs on the top that then will mirror what you have on the bottom. So it has an extra set that will pull the fabric through from the top. So I'm just going to set this on here. I'm trying to put this pretty much where we had it, which lines up with my inside row of feed dogs on the bottom. And that means it will just barely grip on my outside one. Generally, when we sew the vinyl, I think we're gonna get pretty close to the edges for most of the shoe patterns. So that's why I'm testing it this way. So I'm just gonna lower that and we'll see how that makes a difference on this type of vinyl. So you can see those upper feed dogs are bouncing up and down. They're pulling that through. It's very smooth and even. I can go a little bit faster. So this right here is excellent as well. These stitches are super even, very consistent. It looks really nice. It's only a little bit crooked because I was trying to keep my hands off of the vinyl. So I didn't have to pull this at all. The walking foot works great. So as long as it's not too big, just for how much it's covering on your project, a walking foot is also a great investment and makes a huge difference when you're sewing on the vinyl fabric. So you just can decide what works best for you and what you might have and the other uses that you might have for either of these 2 feet. If you sew a lot of knits and a lot of fabrics like that, you might want to just invest in a walking foot and not the non-stick foot. If you don't sew with a lot of leather or vinyl type fabrics, then the non-stick foot might not be the best investment for you. If you can have both, that's great. But just think through what it is that you want to sew and which version will work best for your projects and with your sewing machine. Now I've switched this back to my non-stick foot because it gives me better visibility for the project that I'm working on. So I'm going to take the black toe pieces for the open toe shoe, and I'm actually just going to top stitch along this toe area and the part where it meets the foot, just for some decorative detail. So I have my fabric right against the edge of my foot, and I'm just going to stitch right along that line. I'm using the edge of my foot as my guide. So you can see here, we just have a row of stitching across the toe, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to do that along this back side as well. And you can see here that I'm really only using one part of those feed dogs. This one's not grabbing fabric at all, and I'm still able to have this glide through pretty seamlessly. So this is working really well. So I have this piece stitched like this, and this is going to be the toe portion. So we'll just repeat this process on the other shoe. Now I've gone ahead and stitched right along the top edge of the side piece as well. So I have that stitching on the toe and then the top edge of the side. So this is that side seam piece where the side is going to meet the toe and overlap. And on the fabric version, we've used Steam a Seam to secure those together so that we don't have to use pins. Now on the vinyl, I'm not really, it's not really my preference to try to iron vinyl, and I'm not sure how well that would work anyway. So on here, I just have double stick tape, and this is a very small piece so that I'm hopefully running it on the inside of my seam allowance, and my needle isn't actually going to sew through that. If you're sewing through that, it might gum up your needle a little bit, so you just want to be careful that you have that lined up and overlap. So that will hold it for me enough that I can run this through my machine. And I'm going to try to stitch right on this edge, this raw cut edge, so it's really, really close to the edge of the toe piece. So there you can see that stitching line, and on this first side I've stopped right where I passed this side part of the shoe. Now I'm going to fold this around and I'm going to do this on the other side. And I have another tiny little piece of tape that I've put on the edge of that side piece, and I'm going to overlap those that same 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just lining that up so that my stitching line really is my overlap line. And then when I stitch now on this side, I'm going to stitch all along here, and I'll come right across this toe and meet right where I started on my first side. So there you can see we started on this side over here, and then we came right across this toe area and then just met up where we started our stitching on this side. So that's nice and secure. And now we have the shoe body ready to assemble with the shoe sole. Now for the red vinyl shoe, I'm just sewing the side seams I'm not doing any top stitch detail on the edges. So this one is just gonna run straight through, and we have the non-stick foot on the machine, and it is going through smoothly and nicely, and I'm sewing just along that edge. And that's stitched down right there. I know that's harder to see because it's red. Another thing that I did want to note was that your choice of thread on the inside, make sure that you're using a light white or tan neutral thread so that there's no staining from the thread on the inside of the shoe, not just thinking about the vinyl itself. One other thing that I wanted to note, when I have the shoe in this position and the stickier part of the vinyl is actually on the bottom, on this backside, it is a little bit hard to get the fabric to go through because it does stick down to the machine. So I have a piece of that paper. It's actually that adhesive, but it has the paper backing on it. And I'm just setting that right under that back part of the shoe. And then that way, when I want to slide this through and sew the seam that I'm trying to sew, the paper is under this back heel so it just doesn't get stuck in the machine. So you can see that works nicely to just help guide that through. Now the red shoes are ready to glue to the soles as well. Now we have the shoes, the shoe soles, and the foam, and I have that double-sided adhesive on one pair of the chipboard, and then the second set of chipboard I'm going to use hot glue to sandwich together. So I have my shoe body sewn, and on the inside of this shoe you can see that I have marked with a blue marking pen that mark line where I'm going to need to fold that. So that above the blue is 3/4 of an inch, that the side will extend above that folded shoe sole line. So I have that marked on both of the insides of these shoes, and you can see that I've done that. Now I have the shoe body and my shoe soles, and I've taken my fabric and I've trimmed it really close to the edges of the shape of the sole before I covered it. So this one's covered, but that adhesive backing is on this bottom side. So my overlap of my shoe body will come past this fabric a little bit. So that'll help hold it down. So I'm going to take my shoe sole and my shoe body, and I'm going to pay attention to the lines that I have on the inside, and I'm going to line that up inside there so that my two sides are equal distance from each other and equal height. So that's how I'm determining my heel placement and where that will go. So I'm looking at my blue lines, and I will fold these down on the side first. And then I'm going to press the center back down. And then I'm going to look at how this is folding right here on these two sides. And I'm going to go ahead and just trim that out. I can either cut a slit or just trim it. And then they can be pressed down and folded a little bit more on top of each other. So it'll overlap a little bit more smoothly than if I was just trying to bunch it up. So you can see the shoe body here is taking shape, and then I'm just going to come up around here and check my toe placement. Now for these ones, that stickiness is not sticking out as much, so I'm just going to dab a little bit of glue under there and fold that toe portion over right there. Then I'm just going to continue to check the toe placement on the other side. I'll add a little tiny bit of glue right here. And then if that's creating a pucker on the side part of the upper toe, I can always cut a slit right in here as well and just press that down so that it lays flat. Now I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the inside around the toe and on the heel and set my other piece of chipboard down, and I'm going to push this really tightly along those edges, especially that toe area. So now you can see this shoe body is forming nicely, And we have that sticking out like that. So then the last part is to just put some glue on the bottom, and we will add the foam. And then we have a little vinyl shoe ready to go. We're just going to wrap the edge of this with some black trim. So then there you have that little black vinyl shoe, and now that one is ready to wear. And there we have a cute pair of vinyl open-toe Janes. Now for the red vinyl shoe, I'm going to show you a little bit different technique, and this is using foam that's either sticky back or has that two-sided adhesive on the back. Now the foam is pretty flimsy and it's hard to glue the shoe to the foam, but I'd like the inside of my shoe to be this white foam. So I'm actually just going to set my foam on top of my chipboard just so that it's sturdy, and I'm going to glue the shoe to the foam, and then after I have it all assembled, I'll just pull this piece of chipboard out of the inside, and this will be the inside of my shoe. So I have these down, and I'm going to peel off my sticky backing, and then I'm going to take my shoe and fold over the parts of the shoe on here. And I'm keeping in mind that I'm going to have that with a 3/4 inch rise on the side of the shoe. So I have my edges pressed down on the back. I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to come in and cut a few slits on these turning corner pieces. And you can see here, this is my side. So I have that 3/4 inch on the side. And I'm trying to press this part down. Now this vinyl is a lot thicker. So I'm going to have a few areas where I'm going to need to trim some of that out so that I don't have it folded on top of itself. So you can see the shoes forming, and remember this chipboard is going to come out at the end, so it's just helping me to form the shoe right now. And I'm just going to go ahead then and cut out these corner edges. Now I'm going to place my second piece of chipboard on top of that, and this is all sticky, so I'm actually just going to set this down on top of my foam, pressing it down as hard as I can to really just get that to stick to the foam. And then I'll go around the edges here with my glue and fill in with the glue. And as that comes out, I'll be really careful just to wipe that off. So I'm pressing pretty firmly, giving it a minute just to sort of set and cool, and then I can just wipe this off. And it's not very hot. It's cooled down pretty quickly, but it's still soft enough for me to pull that out of there. So now we have that second piece of chipboard glued down, and like I said, we can go ahead and just pull this chipboard out. So that was just holding that while I was setting that up, but now the inside of the shoe is white. So you could do this with any color foam that you have. I would just test to make sure if you wanted to use black that it's not going to stain the doll. Now we're going to finish this off with a piece of foam on the bottom. And then for this one, just to have it have an added heel, we're just going to glue on this back side. That heel right to the back, and then the shoe can sit like it has a heel. And then we'll just finish this one off by wrapping this whole sole area with some black ribbon. And this is just a black satin ribbon, and it just goes right around the edge. And then there you have that little red vinyl shoe with a tiny little heel on the bottom. And you could do this with or without that heel. All right, guys, I hope that this has helped you kind of think through the process of using vinyl for your shoes and some of the tips and techniques that you can use to do that easily. There are a lot of great patterns. This is just one example, so I really just challenge you to kind of just take these skills and go practice making a lot of shoes.